Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. Listen to this speech by Sheikh Imran Hosein about the Russian war, and then I'll be making some very, very important points.
Adoption of this resolution. Everybody voted for it. My response is to share with you my view that the Western world does not want a peaceful resolution to the conflict in Ukraine. If there is a peaceful resolution at this time, the West will say that Russia has achieved most of the objectives for which Russia made the military intervention. Ukraine is no longer in a position to pose any military threat to Russia.
Okay, so first of all, this statement that he just made about the West not trying to reach to a peaceful resolution, I totally agree with that. And this is why I'm against the West supplying weapons to Ukraine, to Zelensky, simply because this is going to exacerbate the whole situation in Ukraine. I said the West should encourage, they should prod Ukraine to come on the negotiation table and ask them to see if they can make some compromise and reach a peace agreement with Russia in order to stop this bloodshed. So from the very beginning I said Western countries supporting Ukraine with weapon, with machinery, with money is something that needs to be stopped. Let's take a listen a little bit more.
Number two, there's no possibility that Ukraine can ever join NATO. And as a consequence, Russia has already achieved significant success in respect of their objectives. But one of the most important objectives for which Russia intervened was to protect the Russian-speaking people who were living in Donbass on the border with Russia and on the south facing I think it's called the Sea of Azov. Ever since the color revolution, I think it costed the West about $6 billion.
Let me make a comment on this one, as he is saying the reason, or one of the main reasons why Russia got involved in Ukraine is because they wanted to protect the people of Donbass and Donetsk. This is a lame excuse if it is truly an excuse from Russia. The reason for that is because, number one, the people of Donbass and Luhansk and Luhansk, all of this region, they did not complain to the international community against Ukraine. They did not say Ukraine is not letting us speak our own language. They do not tolerate us simply because our language is Russian. They never said that. It is Russia who is accusing Ukraine that you guys are preventing people who speak a similar language like ours from using that language on a day-to-day basis. So if this is the reason, according to Sheikh Imran Hosein, why Russia went to invade Ukraine, this is a very lame excuse. Number one reason for that. And number two reason is because this is a matter of the Ukrainian people. It's an internal matter. You do not go and interfere in other people's matters. If they are having problem with the government because they cannot speak in certain way, then it is up to them to go to the international community, do lobby, and try over and over again and see if they get any response. We have not seen they have done it. So all of a sudden Russia is kind of like acting like a mother, babysitting them, telling them, don't worry, we are here and we are going to make sure that you guys can speak in our language. Let's take a listen.
To overthrow the government of Ukraine. And then they're the same people who are so fussy. You know, Russia was intervening in the American elections with some emails and so on. This is amazing. And you spend about $6 billion to overthrow the Ukrainian government, which had a positive relationship with Russia, and replace it now with a government which hates Russia. And despite
another point that I want to make here is that these muftis, these Islamic scholars, Islamic speakers, I should say, they are exaggerating Russia's power. Since 2014, Ukraine has, when Russia invaded Ukraine in 2014, they had a government in Ukraine that is pro-Western. Can you imagine if Russia was truly a superpower? Can you imagine Russia having to deal and negotiate with a government that was pro-Western from the beginning of its power in the country? They had to bend down to their knees and negotiate with Zelensky, making peace pact treaties and saying that we will not invade you. Why would Russia do that? If Russia was super powerful, and as we see from this mufti, from the sheikh, the Russian government, Russian country, the military is very, very powerful, then why would they not do anything about it? Number one. Okay, this is number one sign that Russia is not a superpower anymore. Number two is because anymore, when I say anymore, I basically mean that, you know, after the invasion, we are now pretty confident and we can see what Russia can do, their ability, their capability. And we can now say Russia really is not a superpower. They have lost a lot. I'll talk about this in a second. Number two reason why Russia is so weak and this country is not a military superpower is because take a look at how many prime ministers, presidents from different countries made a trip to Ukraine under the radar of Russian military force, and Russia did do nothing. They could actually do nothing. They just watched. They saw Boris Johnson, UK Prime Minister. They saw Canadian Prime Minister. They saw EU top leaders, all of them coming and going to Ukraine and living without any problem. Can you imagine Russian radar system? They cannot detect, they cannot find out what is going on in that country. Using all the technology they claim they have, they are actually dumbfounded. Now let me give you something very, very interesting. Since the beginning of this invasion, Russia lost I think only yesterday this report came out, 650 tanks, 3,000 armored vehicles, and over 10,000 of its troops. If Russia was this superpower, the way this Sheikh, Imran Hosein and many other, unfortunately, people, they're promoting Russia, if this was the case, why then Russia would lose so many military personnel, military assets in Ukraine, and yet not being able to make any gain in Ukraine? Right now they're still struggling. They are not able to capture anything in Ukraine. So when we talk about this Ukraine war, look, I'm not for this war. I want this war to end, and I want Ukraine to negotiate with Russia. At the same time, I do believe that the Western countries need to stop supporting Ukraine to end this war as soon as possible. I'm not for the Western countries. I'm not for Russia. What I am waiting for to see is a peace agreement. Bigger war, as you can see right here, bigger war coming, most likely not right now. Okay, right now, I'm saying not now. You can not quote me and say, oh, last video you said, yeah, bigger was coming. Now you're saying, no, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying, right now, no bigger war is coming. Russia is being defeated morally, militarily, economically. They are not being able to win anything. They're not gaining nothing. And so the bigger war, no, it's not coming right now. But as I said, Russia is going to persist. In my other videos I said this. Russia is going to persist in their aggression against now Ukraine. Tomorrow it could be Poland, it could be some other countries. They are not going to give up. They are in it for a long haul. And this is what was echoed by US military. I think Mark Milley, he said the same thing, that Russia is going to destabilize the whole region by making this war longer. They are going to go almost like a guerrilla warfare. They're going to resort to that, withdraw their troops, send mercenaries like they sent in Syria and other countries, and continue on in their effort to destabilize the European countries. So Sheikh Imran Hosein, he has his own views, but I think he is very much too much, I think he would be delusional if he thinks that Russia is a military superpower and that Russia can do this, Russia can do that. No, Russia cannot. They have limitation, and this is why, this is my last point. This is why we see Russia talking about nuclear weapon, using nuclear weapon. They have said it many times, coming from their military, sometimes from their foreign ministry, sometimes from Putin himself. Oh, we have nuclear power, we're gonna wipe you off. Consider to subscribe. See you in the next video.